Hello, my friends, and welcome back.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be taking a look at a clip of a fat activist saying, actually, there are tons of obese people that have restrictive EDs. For some reason, nobody within the fat acceptance movement will just admit that they have binge ED, and they all claim to have a restrictive one. We're also going to be taking a look at a couple of bonus clips from this same creator, including one where they're talking about how to deal with your fatphobic family at Thanksgiving. Before we proceed, please click the like button so that I may apply comb to mustache.
I am a fat person who has recovered from an eating disorder and let go of diet culture. So let's talk about the realities of eating disorder for fat people in honor of National Eating Disorder Week. First and foremost, fat people
Pay attention to how often she looks up and blinks all fast.
can and do get every kind of eating disorder.
Except for the restrictive ones, because one of the criteria is weight loss.
I personally was diagnosed with OSFED, but while at my lowest, exhibited behaviors of anorexia and orthorexia.
You may have exhibited behaviors of Anna, but you didn't have it because one of the criteria is weight loss.
While also at my highest weight I'd ever been.
Okay, so while I was the largest that I've ever been, I also had a restrictive ED whose criteria involve weight loss and a fear of food.
And that said, the symptoms that are often seen as red flags for treatment in thin people are often prescribed and promoted in fat people. In
Go on.
my experience, the calorie counting, body checking and measuring, extreme restriction, all that is celebrated and encouraged. Especially in a world where if we're talking...
Well, if somebody is obese, yeah. The calorie counting, the restricting would be encouraged. But if somebody is already very thin, then clearly you've done enough calorie counting and restricting and you've kind of gone off the rails with it. Not sure why this needs to be explained.
about health, there are so many weight neutral, health promoting behaviors. I want you to just take a second to think.
Why do you keep blinking when you look up to the sky? It's this weird little pretentious thing.
I want you to just take a second. I want you to just take a second.
I want you to just take a second.
Think about how insane that sounds. And further, many eating disorder recovery.
All right, the point she's trying to make is that, oh man, all that restriction and crap that we think is so bad in people with Anna, we prescribe that to larger people for them to lose weight. Well, the difference is people with Anna just kept on going once they got down to a lesser weight. They just kept on losing weight. So therein lies the difference. She's like, you wouldn't prescribe all these weight loss behaviors to somebody that was already thin, but you'll prescribe them to somebody who was large. Yes, duh. That person's already thin. If they continue with the weight loss behaviors, they will cease to exist.
Programs are rooted in affirming lower weight individuals that they are not fat as a source of comfort.
Okay, I don't know if they do that, but if you're already rail thin and you're on death's door and you keep trying to lose weight, it might help to have somebody be like, hey dude, you don't need to lose any more weight. You're not actually overweight, so you could stop. Like, I know it's not that simple, but I think it might be somewhat helpful.
Now let me be crystal clear on something.
Please do.
I do not wish the pain of an ED on anyone in anybody.
Okay, thank you.
Body. But it must be said that there is a clear difference between eating disorders in people in lower weight bodies and higher weight bodies. Being that people in lower weight bodies are often afraid to live in a fat body.
Yeah, I think that's one of the criteria for their disease. By the way, if you can hear my dishwasher in the background, I'm really sorry.
Whereas fat folks are afraid to face even more oppression than they already do.
Wait, what? Hold on, I'm gonna have to go back. People in lower weight bodies are often afraid of the idea of living in a fat body.
Whereas
fat folks are afraid to face even more oppression than they already do. Oh, so you have it worse than thin people, and you have it worse than people with restrictive EDs is what you're saying. Okay. We're doing a little comparison here. Thin people just don't want to be fat, you know. But fat people are afraid of experiencing more oppression than they already do. Okay, I didn't know we were comparing here and trying to figure out which one is more valid. By the way, I'm sure you've noticed that I got a new ring light. The lighting in here is looking great, isn't it? Can't you see all my stupid wrinkles on my dumb face?
Are afraid to face even more oppression than they already do.
What oppression? You're just experiencing the ramifications of your own life decisions.
The bigger they get. Because
yeah, the bigger you get, the more you have excluded yourself from various aspects of society. I don't know why you're telling me about it. This is a conversation you would want to have with yourself in the mirror.
from clothing to seating to safety gear to basic human decency and respect, the bigger you are, the less society gives you access to those things.
No, society didn't take away access to those things. You excluded yourself from access to those things by the things that you did to your own body. Period. Stop blaming society for the things that you have done to yourself and trying to use that as justification to paint yourself as a victim. You're a victim of yourself, literally. None of us had anything to do with where you're at or the things that you cannot access in society.
And on that note, many ED recovery programs do not give higher rate individuals the same freedom to learn how to eat again as they do their thin counterparts.
Because if somebody is obese, they already know how to eat. If somebody has ANA or something like that, they are terrified of food. If somebody is obese, they are not terrified of food. In fact, they have the opposite problem. Why would they have you follow guidelines that are designed for somebody that is drastically underweight? You know, like, what kind of weird games are you playing? And that's why a lot of people within this movement claim to have ANA. They want to be praised every time they eat food. They want a round of applause, which is really weird.
I am beyond privileged that my recovery was centered around a health at every size eating disorder therapist.
Really? You had a health at every size eating therapist. What the hell does that mean? Dude, you were not serious. There's a health at every size eating therapist? So that person is a complete moron, because we know there's not health at 30 pounds and there's not health at 300 pounds. So how can you be an ED therapist? What the hell? Let me translate that. A health at every size eating therapist probably says that it's bad to be underweight, but it's fine to be overweight, right? Was this therapist overweight themselves?
Who guided me through the process of learning how to eat again with...
What? So as an obese individual, you went to an ED recovery program and they taught you how to eat again? What?
Who guided me through the process of learning how to eat again with...
If you never lost weight, you never forgot how to eat.
Flexibility and freedom and no limits whatsoever.
So an obese person goes to an ED recovery therapist and is taught how to eat again and given no limits whatsoever.
But I personally know people who have been in recovery programs where their thin counterparts were encouraged to eat more than them.
Yep, you're confused by this. If somebody is underweight, they need to eat more. If somebody is overweight, they need to, go ahead, pick it up, eat less. That's right, that's very good. That's very good. Thank you very much. I'm not sure why we're so confused yet again.
For no other reason than the fact that they are thin. And because of all of this and more, fat people are often diagnosed way later than their thin peers, or never diagnosed at all.
Well, they shouldn't be diagnosed with a restrictive ED if they're overweight. It's okay to have binge ED, you know? It's okay to be honest with ourselves and others and admit that we actually have binge ED. And in fact, if we want to get help, then we're going to have to be honest with ourselves and others. You can't get the help that you need if you're misdiagnosed. If you keep going into a place insisting that you have this one thing wrong with you, but it's actually something else, you are not going to get the help that you need. Nobody will admit that they have binge ED because then you're admitting that the food that you eat led to the state that your body is in.
And forced to suffer in silence. While I personally feel so incredibly privileged to be at the point where I am not only recovered, but able to talk about it.
Recovered from what?
I still feel anger for the fact that I could have been diagnosed and treated so much sooner had providers in my life or people in my life looked at me solely for the body that I was in and made assumptions based off of that. If you know any creators out there who are fat and speak openly about their ED recovery journey, especially if they hold multiple marginalized identities, please tag them in the comments. My recovery did not begin by me making a video and talking about it.
You know, they say the first step is acceptance.
It began by scouring the internet for just a crumb, one person whose story resembled mine so that I could hold on to that hope.
Wow. Okay, so you're encouraging other people to use your story as a crumb of hope to self-diagnose themselves with EDs as well. That's what I got from that statement. Am I reading too much into it, or is that exactly what she just said? She's saying her journey for discovering that she had an ED began by scouring the internet for just a crumb, one person whose story resembled mine, so that I could hold on to that hope. Okay, well, I recommend the rest of you, if you suspect that you have an ED, you go to a doctor or somebody that can actually diagnose you with it. I suggest that you don't go online and be like, hey, another larger person said they had Anna. I have Anna. I'm going to hold on to this one crumb of hope. What? Why is it a crumb of hope to say that you have a restrictive ED? And like I said, go to an actual doctor and get an actual diagnosis. We don't need more people self-diagnosing based on bullshit that they read online. And you shouldn't be encouraging people to do that.
So let's make this incredibly difficult journey just this much easier on someone who needs it.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree. I'd say we shouldn't encourage people to go self-diagnose. Go see a doctor if you're concerned. Next, plus-size sisterly advice for Thanksgiving. All right, sis, let's go.
If you also feel a pit drop into the bottom of your belly at the mere thought of attending Thanksgiving dinner,
I do. I get all nervous about how good that turkey's going to be. I'm like, oh, last year it was so good, dude. I don't know if I can even handle it this year. This is getting crazy.
AKA the biggest lightning rod for diet culture, fat phobia, concern trolling, food policing. I am here to equip you with all of the reminders that you need to get through the day.
Okay, thank you.
But first, let's take a deep breath, shall we? Yes, I am very serious. In through the nose.
In through the nose. Out through the bum. That last part is hard. Not a lot of people can do that.
Out through the mouth.
Oh, that's how you do it. Okay.
Right.
All that, damn, that breath seemed to get you high as hell, huh? What? Look at the look on her face. You look like you just had a fat ass bong rip, homie. You're like, all right, let's get down to some fat liberation, you plebs.
Ready?
I don't know if I'm ready. Look at where I paused it. Looking like an opera singer in the middle of singing. Humba rapata, humba rapata.
Alright, there is a difference between keeping the peace and protecting your peace. If protecting your peace looks like secluding yourself for a little bit, when you hear your relatives body shaming other people, do it. If it looks like telling your Ozempic touting, boundary breaking uncle to f off straight to his face, I mean...
How dare you tell my uncle to F off straight to his face?
Are you sure you want another plate? Yes. Yes, I am.
Okay. But we don't get larger from eating. Remember, we got larger from not eating? You said in the last video? When you were at your heaviest, you exhibited signs of restrictive EDs, he said. So that means not having several more plates at Thanksgiving, in case you were wondering.
Do not restrict because someone else doesn't know how to mind their own goddamn business.
And to restrict means to not have 4 or 5 plates.
And on that note, you deserve to eat.
But if I've already had enough to eat, do I deserve to just keep on going? Like, for a ridiculous amount of time?
Period. Point blank. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, snacks, all of it.
But I thought that we had a restrictive ED. Now we're talking about deserving to eat all this stuff and whatnot. That doesn't align with people that have a restrictive ED. I think they would be talking about food in a much different way.
I promise not skipping meals in order to save yourself for dinner is an act of self-love. Do not dress to shrink yourself, especially on a day where
talking about not wanting to shrink yourself doesn't seem to vibe with having a restrictive ED. These are all just speculations. I'm not saying this person does or does not have any sort of medical condition. I'm not making any sort of claims. This is just speculation based on what I have observed.
There's lots of food involved. Let your body expand and relax. It's okay to exist while fat. The diet that your aunt is raving about, it's only going to harm her in the long run.
Yeah, whatever you gotta tell yourself to make yourself feel better.
Do not take this as a sign to start one too.
Wow. Okay, so my aunt has experienced success on whatever diet and she's trying to share it with me. I should be like, hey, you're just gonna gain it back and fail, dum-dum, so I'm not even gonna bother trying. So we've basically relegated ourselves to being obese forever and never trying to change it, just for the heck of it.
And finally, the fatphobic things that your relatives have to say says everything about them and not a thing about you.
Yes, keep externalizing all of your own internal problems so you can stay the same way that you are. This is such addict behavior, dude. That was a lot of seething cope, wasn't it? Okay, so if somebody in my family has lost weight doing this diet plan and they want to share with me how they did it, I should just tell them, no, you're going to gain all the weight back. I'm not even going to bother trying this thing. I'm just going to assume that it's not going to work so I can continue to stay the same way that I am, while simultaneously blaming society for where I am in life. Brilliant. Next.
Welcome to FaceTime for the Fats, a series where I, a fat, talk about things that only plus-size people will understand. And today, I need to talk about the tokenism that happens to plus-size people.
I wish you would.
And the subsequent brain rot that I have felt as a result of said tokenism. So here's where I'm coming from with this.
Is it similar to the brain rot that I get from listening to fat acceptance rhetoric? Because I swear all of this is causing me severe brain damage.
I have been creating content on and off since January of 2023, and I really picked it back up in August of 2023. And over the course of this year, I've come to realize that exactly where I'm meant to be is making content specifically regarding fat activism, fat liberation, etc.
Okay.
Through that journey, I've also felt this nagging sense that there isn't a place for me. And do I believe that? No. But I also don't think that feelings are best left in the dark. Because some of the thoughts that I have and some things that I'm working out in therapy revolve around like, oh, well, I can name X, Y, and Z plus-size beauty creators. There's already enough of us. Or, you know, there's so many plus-size fashion creators. Who needs another plus-size person talking about travel? And
exactly.
Here comes in the tokenism and the brain rot. Because as plus-size people, we have been conditioned to believe that if we see...
Watch all the cuts right here. She can't even complete this sentence. As plus-size people, cut, we have been conditioned, cut, to believe, cut.
Because as plus-size people, we have been conditioned to believe that if we see one of us on a beauty campaign, on our Instagram feeds, on TikTok, whatever it might be, if we see one of us...
That was another cut.
That is enough.
Okay, and you think that it's not enough. Everybody's feed needs to be inundated with morbidly obese people.
It's not.
And then she starts coughing up a lung. Oh my God. I'm not one to judge. I'm fairly sick myself right now. I got a lung full of mucus too.
Actually not enough. When we see that the overwhelming amount...
Okay, so we need more plus-size representation so we can live vicariously through all this stupid crap on the TV. I don't need to see a guy with a mustache go hike a trail. I can go hike a trail. You know, this is a crazy idea, I know.
Influencers, content creators, models, people in the public eye don't represent, at least in the United States, the majority of people who look like me.
Well, without talking about your appearance specifically, I can remind you that the average woman in the US, according to the stats that I've read, is between a size 14 and 16. So, I don't know if that's what your situation type deal is. I'm not going to remark on what size I think that you are.
And of course, this phenomenon only gets worse the more marginalized identities you hold.
I know.
You're anything that doesn't fit Eurocentric beauty and social standards. It is that much more easy to find yourself in a place where, after pining, wishing, hoping that you would see yourself represented in some way that was meaningful to you.
Who cares? Go live your life, bro. God.
That when you finally see it, it is so awe-striking. Oh, well, That's it. Like, it's here. And yes, that's something to be celebrated, especially when people who are friends, our peers, our community members are being lifted up in that way. That is something to celebrate.
They're being lifted up.
As
Get dunked on.
they get lifted up, we need to be making more room. And I have to constantly tell
as they get lifted up, we need to make more room. The hand movements just literally don't stop, dude.
myself that there is space for me. I'm allowed to dream of the day when I get to model in a beauty campaign.
Okay. I'm allowed to dream of the day that I win the archery competition, even though I've never shot a bow and arrow before. I could still dream.
And it's all plus size people. And because of
If you want a beauty pageant that's all plus-sized people, then don't get bent out of shape when they make one that's all thin people.
all the ways we've been trained to see that these, singular one-off representations of our communities.
Obese people are not a community, okay? You're not a people. You're not a religion.
As enough. I believe it's even more important that we make that allowance that we're giving ourselves formulate into the realities that we live.
All right, so that was insufferable, and I disagree. And she was just going back into more fat representation. It's not okay to just have a couple fat people representing us in the media. Everybody needs to be morbidly obese. So what do you think of the clips that we just saw? Is it possible to have a restrictive ED while being morbidly obese? Should you tell your fatphobic uncle to go f*** himself at Thanksgiving? And do we need more fat representation in the media? Leave a comment below. Happy Monday, everybody. Anyway, that about does it. Thanks for watching, commenting, liking, and subscribing. And I'll see you in the next one.